Time is something many of us take for granted. We use it to plan out our day, get to places when we should, and maintain a routine. A consistent schedule helps maintain our body's circadian rhythm, which is our internal sleep-wake cycle. Consistent schedules help promote proper sleep patterns and increase productivity. However, in all but 2 states in the U.S., our normal routine is thrown off twice a year to observe daylight savings time. Today, I'm going to talk about daylight savings time and its purpose, alleged benefits, and downfalls. All of us have experienced the effects of the twice-yearly time changes. We deal with drowsiness because of less sleep, struggle to adjust to meals being at a different time, this is especially true for young children and pets, and have to live with a general sense of being off until we adjust to the new time. I'm going to discuss the problems caused by twice-yearly time changes, efforts to transition to a consistent time, and the benefits to be gained by ending time changes. First, I would like to discuss the original purpose of daylight savings time and how the proposed benefits did not meet expectations. Twice-yearly time changes are disruptive, ineffective, and potentially dangerous. According to a 2020 report from the Congressional Research Service, which is Congress's Public Policy Research Institute, daylight savings time was first enacted in 1918 as part of the Calder Act. This practice in the U.S. was preceded by Germany in 1916 as an attempt to save fuel. From 1942 to 1945 and from 1973 to 1975, daylight savings time was implemented in the U.S. year-round, each time with the rationale of conserving energy. The most recent federal legislation affecting daylight savings time was the Uniform Time Act of 1966. The Uniform Time Act set the standards for time zones in the U.S. and established the current system of switching to daylight savings time in spring and standard time in fall. While daylight savings time was promoted as a means to save energy, researchers Arias and Newman and Cochin and Grant, who published studies in the journals Energy Policy and the National Bureau on Economic Research, respectively, report changes in energy consumption related to daylight savings time ranging from a 0.5 to 2% decrease to as much as a 1% increase. Although the energy benefits of daylight savings time are inconclusive, there have been many studies demonstrating health risk of the twice-yearly time changes. According to a study by Zhang et al. Published in PLOS Computational Biology, daylight savings time changes have been linked to an increase in heart attacks, traffic accidents, workplace injuries, immune-related disorders, and mental disorders. Another study by Ferguson et al., published in the American Journal of Public Health, showed that keeping daylight savings time year-round could prevent an estimated 180 fatal vehicle crashes a year. In addition, opinion polls showed time changes are unpopular. According to a poll done by the Associated Press and ORC, 71% of Americans would prefer to keep a consistent time, as shown in this graph here. Despite eliminating time changes have significant support, states can only choose to stay at standard time year-round. Without an amendment to the Uniform Time Act of 1966, daylight savings time cannot be made permanent in any state. Despite time changes being ineffective, unsafe, and unpopular, states can only choose to stay at standard time year-round. Without an amendment to the Uniform Time Act of 1966, daylight savings time cannot be made permanent. Congress should amend the Uniform Time Act to allow states to implement daylight savings time year-round. Efforts to maintain daylight savings time year-round has received substantial support from state legislators. According to the Congressional Research Service, as of September 2020, 45 states have introduced some form of legislation to end the time changes. Specifically, 15 states have introduced legislation to make daylight savings time permanent, 4 to make standard time permanent, and 26 introduced both types of legislation, as you can see in this graph. Among the states wanting to make daylight savings time permanent are South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee. Since all of South Carolina's surrounding states also want to make daylight savings time permanent, issues relating to different time standards when traveling between states would be eliminated. Over the past 2 years, there have been several bipartisan bills in Congress that would permit year-round daylight savings time. Increased interest by citizens and states could help increase the odds of such a bill being passed. Hopefully, it will not be long before disruptive, dangerous time changes are a thing of the past. Keeping daylight savings time in effect year-round would improve sleep cycles and decrease traffic deaths, thus benefiting everyone. Imagine a time when you will not have to get up at 2 a.m. to change a clock and fall back for the winter, knowing that when you get home from work or school the next day, it will already be dark. Year-round daylight savings time would end the frustration associated with having to adjust your entire routine and sleep cycle. Having more daylight in the evenings when most people have free time would also allow for more outdoor recreation, which is beneficial to health. In a world where we already have enough problems to worry about, arbitrary and disruptive time changes should not be one of them. In conclusion, time changes are always inconvenient and sometimes deadly. Today, I showed you the history of daylight savings time, including how it was originally to conserve energy but failed to deliver as expected. I also showed you how there is increasing evidence of the harms of time changes as well as substantial public support for maintaining a consistent time. Finally, I discussed what can be done to make daylight savings time permanent and how it would benefit society. I encourage you, if you want to make time changes a thing of the past, let your congressional representatives know that making daylight savings time permanent is important to you. Permanent daylight savings time could very well become a reality if it receives the support it needs to pass. While we cannot control the sun, we can control what our clocks say. We should use this ability to our full advantage.